How's it going everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today we have the 6th episode of the Refine It series, and we've got another 3 designs that I'm going to be reviewing today. As I mentioned previously, there's only going to be one more episode after this one of the Refine It series before I'm going to be switching over to the live stream format, where I'm going to be basically just reviewing the work submitted by you guys live, and obviously I'll be getting like live submissions and kind of talking through it on stream, and hopefully I'll be able to get in more than 3 pieces per stream, and it just kind of creates a better kind of link between me and obviously whoever I'm reviewing the work with as they get the feedback live and straight away. Rather than obviously submitting the pieces a few months ago and then me finally getting round to doing these episodes, which is obviously not great on my part, but we're getting there eventually. But yeah, so that's what's going to happen after episode 7. But if you don't know what the series is, it's basically just a design feedback series where I go over designs that have been submitted by the viewers. I give some kind of initial feedback on first seeing the piece. I let you know what I like and I don't like, and then I do a bit of a quick speed art kind of section during which I kind of redo the piece to what I think would look better, and then I kind of talk through my decisions after the speed art section. That I do that with 3 designs per video. And yeah, it's quite, obviously it's not like very in-depth design feedback, but it's pretty surface level stuff, like I always say, but it kind of just gives an idea of what you guys can be doing to kind of improve your pieces quite quickly, with little fixes and little things to kind of look out for when you're creating designs in the future, or even you can go back and redo the design that has already been submitted. But enough of my talking, let's get into design number 1. So design number 1 has been submitted by Owen, and it's this Charlotte versus Houston matchday piece. And straight away, it's given me kind of Chelsea design vibes from last season's artwork that have been done by Sporting Press. I really like the way that the serif font is used. It's quite a nice retro stylized piece, which I'm a sucker for, to be honest. This kind of repetition design as well on the left works really, really well. You've got kind of obviously the spotlight on one of the players, and then expanded further up the piece to kind of just bring more attention to it, and it fills this space really, really nicely. And obviously the text is kind of made around the player. There's a couple of things straight away that I would improve upon. Obviously placement of the date, potentially all of this information as well. I think you could kind of tweak the hierarchy of this, as it all kind of just blends into one, so you're just kind of rattling through the information and you don't know which bits are the kind of the most important. Obviously the kind of the big names here, the teams, but again, when you're looking at this straight away, you wouldn't think that these are the team names, which obviously kind of leans into that the style that this piece is done in. But I do think that this could be improved slightly with the kind of the composition of the text, composition of the actual design itself. I don't think there's much to be tweaked. I really like this the repetition design, like I've said, the kind of the posterized thresholded picture of the stadium in the background. As you can see, there's some sort of text as well, which I'm assuming it's the CH from Charlotte, kind of blown up in the background with a little bit of a blur on. The textures are really good on it as well. I can tell that they've been layered on quite a few layers just to kind of achieve this look, which is really, really cool. If you can zoom in, you can tell that there's a lot going on, which is great, because it just kind of fills out these really smooth blocks of color, which again, you'd get quite a lot of when you've got a threshold design in the background. And yeah, it works really, really well. Yeah, just a few little tweaks to composition rather than actual kind of execution of certain design techniques. I think it's just more the layout that I think I'll be tweaking on this, but a really, really solid piece on this one. Owen, thank you for submitting. Make sure to check out the socials of everyone in the video. All the links, as always, are in the description below. But now let's get into my kind of speed art section on this design. So as you will have seen, the change of the design hasn't actually been that drastic if you compare the two. So obviously now on the screen you've got the piece that was submitted to me, and then this is the piece that I've redone. It literally took me like 15 minutes, just little tweaks, little kind of changes in the composition like I mentioned before. But yeah, just little things to help the flow of the piece. I think the composition of it has been improved in my opinion. Again, obviously this is all based on personal opinion, but I think it's been slightly improved. You kind of have the main bits of information. You've got the stadium where it's at, and then obviously these kind of location information towards the bottom of the piece with the date up top nice and big. So talking through what I've done, essentially, as you can see, I've just moved the cutout itself more to the left and kind of enlarged it so it fills the entire kind of left hand side of the design. I've moved the logos as well to the left hand side so it's not as in your face in the middle. Then what I also did, obviously I broke up the text in these, this kind of one block essentially, and I've just created 3 kind of separate bits of text. So you've got the main information obviously with the date, when the game took place. Then you've got this kind of information, obviously the 2 teams that are playing, time, where it is, and then obviously this kind of extra additional information essentially you'd say, with the kind of location where the game is being played. But yeah, I think it's just a little bit more digestible. The main bits of info kind of stick out to you straight away rather than it just being this big block of text, which, as you might know, obviously when you've got big blocks of text, people don't tend to be as receptive to it. I think that's probably the best way of putting it. People get quite bored very, very quickly nowadays of reading larger chunks of text. So I think splitting it up into smaller chunks that are more digestible was the kind of the safer choice really. And then the only other thing that I did was boosted the saturation on the piece overall just to kind of get the purple to really pop. And then also I added a bit more of a glow on the cutout itself just to again kind of bring your eyes to that straight away as well. And it's kind of linked to this kind of text block essentially. So you've got this big kind of rectangle in the middle that your eyes are immediately drawn to as well, with the date obviously being quite large as well. But this is kind of the main focus of the piece. But yeah, not a massive change again. Like I mentioned, it's just more of a composition tweak and a little bit of a shift around essentially of elements that were already there. So it wasn't like I was adding anything new other than kind of emphasizing the lens flare kind of effect that you've got, or the glow should I say. But yeah, really, really solid piece, Owen. Thank you so much for submitting it. We've not had a style like this submitted on the series as of yet, which is really cool. So I'm glad you've submitted it. But yeah, if you want to get in touch and get the PSD for this, obviously feel free to do so. Drop me a message and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. But yeah, with design number 1 done, let's get on to the second one. Now, design number 2 has been submitted by FloDesigns, and it's this Alexander Pavlovich from Bayern Munich design, which straight away I love the background. I went through a phase probably for about a year and a half where I did these mad abstract designs, tried to kind of get as abstract as possible with the backgrounds and kind of add in as many shapes as I possibly kind of could, which I really, really enjoyed, to be fair. So this is really giving me kind of throwback vibes to what I used to do, and it's so cool. I love how many different elements you've got going on there, but in a nice kind of orderly manner, essentially. It's all very organized but abstract at the same time, I think, which is really cool. The only thing that is kind of throwing me off a little bit is the text behind the cutout slightly. It's slightly off center, I think, and it doesn't flow too well with the text underneath. I mean, it kind of creates an L shape, but then you've got this massive gap at the bottom, which looks a little bit empty, and I think it's a little bit kind of off balanced, the piece. This the motion blurred effect up here as well on the arrows, I don't think works particularly well with everything else being very kind of sharp and in focus, with just this one little random bit being blurred. I don't think it was the kind of the right choice to do that. If you were going to do that, maybe kind of bring it in on the bottom as well, kind of going in the opposite direction. I think that would be quite cool. Kind of create a left-right composition, kind of maybe going like back and forth between the piece with the arrows and the kind of the angled shapes that you've got going on. But yeah, very, very cool piece. I like pieces that have got a lot of color, but then obviously the cutouts themselves have got black and white, which is really cool. It brings a really nice kind of contrast effect to the piece. I do think the contrast could be improved a little bit on the cutouts themselves, just to kind of bring more variation between the highlights and the shadows. I think the whites could pop a little bit more on the piece, but hey, it's a very, very strong piece. You know, I love these abstract designs. It's a very kind of good showcase of what you're able to do with a lot of information or elements with the way that you're putting them together, with the way that obviously they all did come together, and it looks like a very cohesive piece. Everything kind of looks like it's part of the design rather than this top left, well, other than this top left arrow shape up here. I think without that it would look a lot better. But yeah, very, very strong piece. Thank you very much for submitting, Flo. And yeah, let's get on to the speed out of this one. So with the speed up part of this design done, obviously as you already seen in the short clip before this is the before design and this is the after. So again, not massive changes, it's slight tweaks to the composition. Played around with a few of the elements that were again already there, and I think just kind of make things stand out a little bit more as well. So talking through what I've done, as you can see, obviously the top left hand side element, I've removed the blur as it didn't really work in my opinion. I've also removed the half tone kind of dot pattern as well going on through the piece, which upon kind of, you know, looking at the piece a little bit more, I don't think it fit really well. It did bring in the kind of the white of the design a little bit more, and it brought the highlights essentially to pop a bit more with the white. So what I kind of did instead, if you look at the after, I've made the text white just so it kind of all links together. So you've got the highlights on the skin, on the cutouts, and the text really kind of in your face and standing out, which obviously immediately attracts your eye. Also what I did, like I kind of mentioned before, I duplicated this element up here, and then I've duplicated it to the bottom right hand side just so it kind of creates a nice link and it fills up the space really nicely. I also kind of tweaked the position of this text just so you can actually make out the P shape of that first letter, and I got it to line up with the line that you had going on with the design anyway. And then the only kind of other major change that I did was I brought in a bit of a field blur into the background just to make this kind of central design very in focus, and then as you kind of fade out towards the edges of the piece, it kind of blurs a lot more, again just to kind of create this realistic effect of obviously drawing your eye in. Things are out of focus when you're focusing on something, everything else obviously blurs. That's just what vision does, so I think it kind of made sense in my eyes here. But again, you know, not massive changes. I've improved the contrast a little bit on the piece, as I mentioned in the kind of the previous initial feedback section. So if you look at the skin, I've brought the highlights be a lot more, well, white essentially, a lot brighter, and then the shadows are a little bit darker. And I also brought in just an overall grain texture just to help kind of blend everything. I'm not 100% sure on the position of the first name. Looking back at it now, I just kind of got it to fill this bottom left hand side section, and it lines up, the middle of it lines up with the middle of the arrows, which I think is what makes it tolerable, I think. If it didn't, I think it wouldn't have really worked. But anyway, you know, that was just a minor tweak. But yeah, you know, the piece is great. I love all the abstract shapes that you've got going on, and the textures. The photography used as well is very cool, which I'm assuming obviously is from München or Munich, whatever you want to call it, if you want to be getting down to the nitty-gritty. But yeah, it's a very, very, very solid piece. I really liked this one. It honestly didn't take me long at all to kind of get these tweaks done. Again, it was just a case of kind of shifting a few things, adding a little bit of a few adjustment layers, essentially changing the color of a few bits, and then obviously just duplicating this pattern that you've got going on. see the bottom right hand side, just to kind of help balance the piece out a little bit. But yeah, very, very strong design flow. Again, if you want to get access to the PSD, drop me a message. But yeah, very solid design, very, very good kind of initial feedback, I think. It was very strong. I didn't have to do much to it. It's just like final little tweaks. And again, obviously it's personal preference at the end of the day. So some people might not agree. Some people might prefer the before design, but that's obviously just the point of the series, just to kind of give you a little bit more insight of what I think about designs. But yeah, thank you so much, Flo, for submitting the design. And now let's get on to the third and final one. So the third and final design has been submitted by Ahmed, and it's this Man United kind of trio of future stars design, which is a really cool concept. Obviously, I know it's last year's kit, as it has been a while since these designs have been submitted, but you know, I do apologize about that. But everyone is still there at the club, so hopefully it shouldn't matter too much, and I think it's just a case of looking at the design rather than it being the most up to date. But looking at it straight away at first glance, it's giving me a bit of like film poster vibes. I can see this working on a film poster or some sort of like documentary series or something like that. I like the text that you've used. You've got the script font and obviously a nice big bold font with it as well. Same sort of thing going with the full names of the players, which is really cool. The only thing that I don't really get in terms of the image choice is the colors of the kits. I would have gone with all 6 of the images just wearing the home kit with, or if you were going to do the middle one being the away kit, I would have done it so Højlund is wearing the away kit rather than having a bit of a mismatch with Garnacho wearing both the home kits. Then you've got the home kit down here, away kit, and then away kit down here, and then home kit again on my new. So that's the only thing that kind of sticks out to me straight away. One more thing that you could potentially have done is split up the future text. So you should have done it maybe in the same way that you've done the names. So you'd have the in the script font at the top, and then obviously a nice big bold font saying the future maybe behind the heads a little bit. But it's a cool concept. It's very cinematic. I like the designs that don't have just a flat white background. There's a bit of a color tinge to it, which I think works really, really well. Again, it's giving me very much like film poster, documentary poster vibe, which is cool. Composition can be improved slightly, I think. There's a few little things straight away that kind of pop out to me. It's not very balanced, as you can tell. It's not directly in the center, which I think is what throws it off the most. And obviously the text again, then it's not lining up to this kind of bottom section of the images. But you know, these are just like little things to pick up on. The more you do these things, the more you pick up on these things. So it's just one to bear in mind for the future. But yeah, I think that's kind of it for my initial feedback. You know, solid piece, but definitely can be improved. And yeah, let's see what I can do in the next kind of 15-20 minutes in the speed art. So the third and final speed art section of this video now done. As you can see on the screen, like we always do, we've got the before shot and now moving on to the after design. Again, not a major change. I feel like the theme of this episode has been the composition changes more than anything, just shifting elements just to kind of make it flow a little bit better and just to kind of work a little better, balance it out a bit more. And yeah, you know, again, major changes. The only thing that probably the biggest thing that I did on this design was kind of remove the sun glow, I'd call it, with the backdrop being kind of an off-white tinge going into the yellow, I instead have made it go into a bit more of a grayish color around the edges with a vignette going, just to kind of really help focus on this central composition that you've got going on. And then what I also did which I didn't mention straight away actually, I only picked up on this when I was working on it. Obviously all the skin tones are in black and white, and then when you get to the bottom cutouts, they were all in full color. So I've tweaked that, so it's all just kind of the kit colors are the only ones that are obviously the colored versions, and then everything else, all the skin tones are in black and white, just to help kind of make the piece cohesive essentially. I didn't tweak the color in the kits. Obviously I'd have to get some images for that, but I have obviously mentioned it in the initial feedback part. But so the things that I did, like I mentioned previously, I kind of just cleaned up this bottom area of the design. As you can see, just made it all line up essentially, and then if you get the guide up, everything's kind of central now with the names, the composition with Hoyland being the main figure in the middle. And then I also tweaked this text just to kind of get it more in your face. So I brought it all into basically just one line with the script font going over the top. I brought in the United badge to sit right next to the text, which is, I think, from what I remember about United Designs, I think is what they do sometimes. I'm not sure if this is the correct badge to have it in full color, but you know, we'll kind of flow with that. Yeah, the only other thing I think majorly what I did was I brought in a red saturation color layer onto the pitch image rather than having it in full color again, just so it kind of really makes the red stand out, especially on this kind of gray, light gray, dark gray background that we've got going on here. The red really pops with the white skin tones, well, black and white skin tones should I say, and yeah, the skin tones then kind of work well with the background layer. So I think that's what kind of really brought this piece together, getting rid of the yellow hint with the glow. But at the same time, I think it could have worked if we potentially maybe played on the yellow from the badge a bit more. If this was a full color badge, it could potentially have worked. But with the black and white look that we already had going on, I think it made sense just to kind of get the reds to pop a little bit more, bring everything centrally just to kind of clean up a bit of the edges, clean it up so it's a nice even horizontal line going as well. Tweak the text slightly, and yeah, really again just a bit of a rejig, slight change in the composition. I couldn't do much with these cutouts as they were all rasterized in one layer, all three of the player cutouts, so there wasn't much I could do. But it kind of works if you balance it out in the middle, so it's not too bad, even though you've got kind of different poses going on, with Mainu potentially could have been in the middle and then Hoyland being on the right as he's looking kind of more to the right, and then Garnacho's heading to the left. I think maybe it could have worked out a little bit better. But yeah, you know, compositional changes more than anything. It was a very solid piece, Ahmed. Thank you so much for submitting. And yeah, just all three of the submissions have been really good quality this episode. Like I mentioned, it's just more compositional changes rather than major kind of design techniques or design flaws initially. So yeah, it's just a few things that you kind of pick up on over the years. But yeah, very solid piece again. I want to thank all three of the guys that sent in the pieces. All the links to the socials will be down below, so make sure to check those out, and obviously drop a like on this video and a comment if you enjoyed it. And the 7th and final episode, which hopefully should be out over the next couple of weeks, yeah, is going to be in the making very shortly, and I hope to see you all then.